There is nothing more satisfying than seeing the sun hit your solar panels when you're living off grid. These things have had full sun just about all day, and I think that we just reached float here not too long ago. When we hit float, that is the last charging stage for our batteries in the system that we have. But we're not here to talk about solar today. On one of our earlier videos, we had a new subscriber, Mike, ask me a question about like what would be the cost or what would be a good budget to start with, you know, if you're just looking into getting into this lifestyle. And I thought about it and I realized that there's so many variables that I just couldn't answer him with just a number. So what I decided is I'll kind of walk you guys through our process of how the thought process we had when we made the decision to go off grid and when we actually came here. In addition, we're also stacking firewood into our shed. But first, I have to make a pit stop here with the chickens. During the afternoon, we'll give them a bucket full of treats. We've got some lentils in here that Jen grows. We've also got icky looking things. These are little treats that we get for them. And then also a friend of ours had given us a bag of pellets. So we throw a little bit of that in there. So, hey Rex, what you doing there, big guy? Oh, look at all you ladies. You girls know what time it is. Yes, you do. Oh, all right. Everybody's waiting for me to throw some food at you, huh? Well, let's do it. Come on, girls. Thelma, come here, Thelma. Thelma likes to eat out of our hands. Not many of the other ones do, though. All right, well, we're gonna let the girls eat their afternoon snack. And while they do that, we're gonna go move some firewood. So for the sake of this conversation, let's assume for the moment that you are thinking about changing your life and leaving the city and going off grid somewhere. That was a big bird. So in this video, I'm going to talk about the process that Jen and I used from going from an idea to actually moving here, and all the steps that we went through to get to this point. Now, I suppose you could use this as a guide, but like I said, this is how we did it. I'm also sure that there are other ways of doing it, and you know, I think for the folks who are watching this who might find some value in this video, I would think that you would want to find you know, do it in the way that makes you comfortable, right? I mean, you got to find what works for you. If the way I explain it and the way that Jen and I did it makes sense and it works, well, have at it. You know, good luck. If it doesn't, that's okay too. You know, there's always multiple solutions to a problem or to a challenge or to a question. And so, you know, just find what works for you. All right, so like most of these types of videos, I had to write some stuff down, make myself some notes, because I wanted to make sure I got it right for you folks. But while we talk about this, I also got to load up on some firewood. So let's assume again that you've made the decision that you want to, leave city life and go find someplace in the country and start your own off-grid homestead or your own homestead. Well, the first thing that I would recommend you do, you need to create a vision of what your ideal homestead is going to look like 5 years from now. The reason you're going to want to do that is it's going to give you kind of a goal to shoot towards, something that you can start seeing. And if you can start seeing it, you can start believing it. And once you start believing it, then it's just a matter of doing things to get you to where you want to go. Now, some of the things that you're going to want to consider when you're creating this visual for yourself is, are you going to have a garden? Are you going to have livestock? Are you going to have water frontage, meaning you want to be on a lake or a pond or have a river on the property? You want to live in the woods? You want to live in the desert? You want to live in the mountains? Things of that sort, right? What kind of buildings do you think you're going to have? Do you want a lot of outbuildings, or do you want a simple little cabin, right? These are the things that you need to put together. Now, it could take you a night. It could take you several weeks or several months, to figure out what that's going to look like. But at some point, you're going to have that vision. You're going to be it might not be exact, but you're going to have that vision. You're going to have that picture. And that picture is what I'm going to ask that you hold on to. Because the next step is a little bit tougher. Now that you've got the vision of what your homestead ideally would look like, the next step is where really the pen meets the paper. There's a lot of anxiety, a lot of doubt, right? A lot of anticipation, all of these different emotions, right? During this step of looking for property. When you're making a move from the city to something more rural, what happened with Jen and I was, and I've talked about this in another video called, why we chose to move to Maine. But what I'll say is, we had this vision. We wanted to live in Montana. We wanted mountains and all this awesomeness, and it turned out that it was way out of our price range. And so this next step really is sitting down and identifying what it is exactly that you need, the bare minimum that you need on a piece of property that's going to get you to where you want to go, right? And I'm not talking about your wants, I am talking about your needs. And there is a significant difference between what you need in a piece of property to start out and what you want. All right, so what do I mean by this? Let's start with this. I'll kind of get you started, and then you can kind of see where it goes and what this is going to look like. First thing you want to ask yourself is, do you want to be on-grid or off-grid? The difference is substantial. The lifestyle is going to be different. The financial impact is going to be different. So you got to decide whether you want a piece of property off-grid or on-grid. You're going to need to decide where you want to live, right? Do you want to live in the woods? Do you want to live in the prairies? Do you want to live in the desert? Do you want to live in the mountains? Is that what you need on your property? You're going to also have to decide whether you need a water source on the property, albeit a lake, pond, river, stream, creek, or well, for that matter. You're going to need to decide whether you want an existing homestead that's already done and it's basically a plug and play situation, or do you need a place that has a fixer-upper on it, something that you can do a little work to stay in while you build your dream homestead or your dream home, dream cabin, whatever it is? Or do you want just straight up raw land? And whenever you decide what you need in that category, then the next question becomes, well, how much land do you need? Do you need 5 acres? Do you need 10 acres? Do you need 20 acres? 50 acres? For example, with Jen and I, we knew we needed a place that we could stay while we built our cabin. We needed a minimum of 50 acres. And we wanted to be in the woods with a view of the mountain, close to water. So when we put all of these things into a list, we realized everything what we needed was on the East Coast, more importantly in Maine. Now, what everything that you need may not be in the state that you originally thought, right? It might be in a state that you never even considered, like it was for us. Who knows? Only you can decide that. But it's so important to sit down and put this together. You need to know what kind of, like, you know, if you plan on hunting, what are the hunting laws? What hunting laws do you need to exist in order to you can do what it is you want to do on your homestead? What kind of fishing laws, right? When it comes to the property, do you want to own the lumber rights, the mineral rights, the water rights, right? I mean, if you're in the state of Maine, you want your lumber rights or your timber rights, right? You don't want a logging company to come on your property every 15 years and clear cut you, right? So you want your timber rights. So, I mean, these are the kind of questions that you're going to have to ask yourself, and you're going to have to get them written down so that you have a clear picture. Or at least it doesn't have to be perfect, but it has to be as close to perfect of what you're going to need, so that when you start looking at properties, you can get an accurate assessment of value, so you know how much money you're going to need. Because, I mean, let's face it, at the end of the day, it all comes down to money, right? The government's not giving away homesteads anymore. There's no free land. So it all comes down to how much are you willing to spend up front? And then later, how much are you willing to spend to grow or to maintain, right? So, you know, by putting this list together, it really kind of narrows it down so you know exactly what you'll be looking for when you do start looking for land. All right, so you've created a vision of the homestead, your ideal homestead, what it's going to look like in 5 years. You have created a list of necessities for the piece of property that you want to buy. So now the next step is you need to go online, and there's a plethora of different sites you can use for reference. We use LandWatch. That is not a plug for LandWatch. If you have something else that you use or that's available to you, use that. And what you want to do is start narrowing your searches to the types of properties that you've identified in your necessity list. So once you've narrowed down that list and you're looking online, you're looking at different properties, you're going to run into a situation where you're going to have a specific state. So let's just say, call it New Hampshire, right? Or call it Michigan, or whatever you want to call it. But you have this specific state in mind. You start looking at that, and you start realizing that there are properties there that meet some of the things that you need, but not others, right? Well, if it's not meeting everything, and if you aren't happy with what you're seeing versus what you have on your list, revise the list or revise the search. Don't try to put a square into a round hole. It's not going to work. You're going to end up spending a lot of unnecessary time and energy, and it's simply not going to work for you. I cannot stress how important that is. And the reason that's important is it's going to reduce the amount of time that you're looking at properties that simply don't meet what you want. They don't have what you need, right? One of the benefits of doing it this way is that you can get an idea of what you're going to be paying for properties. You know, like I said earlier, all of this comes down to money, right? How much money are you going to have to put into this up front, right? The bigger, the more finished, the more complete, the bigger property, obviously more expensive. If you're willing to put in the work to build your homestead, then maybe finding raw land as opposed to a big, finished homestead is, fits your situation, fits your scenario, right? Only you can decide that. So, getting online, looking at properties, and getting that dollar amount, kind of that general dollar amount, to me is really the next step in this progression, in this journey you're going to take on. Because now you have your vision. You know what you need in a piece of property. Now you have a price tag that you can put on that piece of property. We're not looking at properties at this point. We're just trying to figure out how much we're going to be spending. Now, if you have the money, hey, God bless you, right? I mean, but if you don't, well, then you're going to have to work towards it. And the decisions you make in your life from that point forward is going to have to always be mindful of putting money away so that you're able to do this. Now, let's assume for the moment, maybe you're not looking to pay everything off and retire. Maybe you're looking for a place off-grid that you can homestead, but still work off the property. And if that's the case, well, then you have to consider places to work, right? I mean, are you going to go to some place that's so remote that there's nothing there and no jobs, yet you need a job to pay for things? Probably not, right? So you're going to have to give consideration to that as well. And I go back to, it's all what your situation is, what your lifestyle is, looks like, and what you're doing in your life and where you are at in your life. Now, let's talk about timelines, right? For Jen and I, we made this decision all the way back in 2010. And in 2010, or from 2010 until 2017, when we went to Montana for the first time, we knew that we needed to pay everything off. We needed to pack away and store away as much funds as we possibly could. I mean, we had a vision of what we wanted. Now, granted, that vision got crushed after we came back from Montana, but we were able to kickstart it up, and we realized that we were in such a good place because we had already done all this homework. Now, you might be in a different situation, right? You may be trying to do this in a year, maybe 5 years, right? Maybe 10 years. But you're going to have to evaluate that for yourself so that you can make sure that you buy something and get yourself into a piece of property that makes sense for your vision of homesteading. Because at the end of the day, when all the dust settles, you're going to be standing on that piece of property, and it's going to be up to you to decide whether or not that piece of property was what you originally had in your vision for your long-term homestead. Now, I know I'm not answering specific questions, and I'm not giving you guys very specific, like dollar amount type of answers, but there's a reason for that, right? I mean, we wanted to live in the woods, have long winters. You might want to live in the tropics. I can't tell you what it would be for me or what it cost us. That's not going to benefit you one bit, right? You've got to do your homework. You've got to do your due diligence. You've got to figure out what it is you want, right? And then do some research. It's so easy and simple to do, but you actually have to do it, right? And once you've done that homework, then the fun really begins. Then you do get to start looking at properties when the time comes and when you're ready to do so. You start looking at properties, start visiting properties, right? I mean, all of the things that you envisioned originally that you committed to, and you can start seeing that vision become a reality for you. Now, like I said, there are a ton of ways to do this. This is just the way that Jen and I did it, right? I mean, these few simple steps that we took got us from a conversation we had on our couch one night. Fast forward, what now, 14 years? And here we are living off grid, living our dream life here on our property, right? But again, there's so many other ways of doing this. It's just one practical way to get you from the city to living the homesteading life that you dreamed of. Now, I'm also not going to have all the answers. The way that we did it, it worked for us. But again, may not work for you. And sure, can you just pick it up and leave? Go find someplace? Absolutely. Would I do it? No. No, I would have never done that. Do people do it though? Oh, I'm sure they do. I'm sure there's a lot of different ways you can get from where you're at to where you want to go. In this video, I just gave you some of the simple first steps to take to help get you on your way, if that's what you're looking to do. All right, so we've got ourselves a full load of firewood that we're going to take back over to the cabin. As for this video and as for you folks, whatever you find that works for you, do it. If this helps, fantastic. Like I said, if it doesn't, that's okay too. If pursuing this lifestyle is something that is important to you and is something that you want to do, no matter what your situation in your life, never forget your dreams, and having that vision of what the end game is going to look like. I can't tell you how impactful that's going to be on your journey. Case in point, one of the last things in my vision is for us to have horses. Now, we have a long way to go before that time comes, but I know in my heart that that day will come and we'll have horses. And when we get those horses, my picture of what I saw for Jen and I, that'll be complete. And on that note, thanks a lot for sticking around watching this video. And if you liked it, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. We'll see you folks on the next video.